most dangerous man the Virgin Islands has ever seen. Federal Court Judge William A. Morrison slammed the gavel down, sentencing Paul Bogus Girard to numerous life sentences. Paul Girard would have an iron grip on the U.S. Virgin Islands while he was in the streets and from his prison cell in the federal prison system. With cell phones, he would order the robberies of people on the island and also their demise. Many people would lose their lives at the hands of Paul's orders, according to the government. Rival gang members and thieves were all subject to be eliminated when Paul called the shots. In 2009, Paul would be sentenced to 37 months in federal prison for selling firearms. While in prison, Paul Bogus became the connect, and although he was in prison, nothing stopped the hustle, at least not for him. In November 16, 2012, cops would search his cell at the Golden Grove Adult Correctional Facility, occupied by Bogus Girard and another inmate. They would seize 2 cell phones and 24 dime bags of weed. Text messages from one of the cell phones contained Bogus's nickname and phone number. On January 16, 2013, prison officials would search another cell occupied only by Bogus and seize a knife, a cell phone, and 34 more bags of marijuana. The phone contained several photos of Bogus Girard. On June 18, 2013, prison officials again would search a third cell that Bogus was being held in. There they would seize another cell phone and just one single bag of weed. The confiscated phone contained several photos of Paul Bogus Girard. On April 7, 2014, a federal search warrant allowed agents to search a 4th cell occupied by Girard, where they would seize a homemade weapon or a shank, an iPad, and more weed. The iPad contained a video of Bogus and others in a Golden Grove prison cell. The feds would charge him with new crimes only because they were working on something much bigger for Paul, aka Bogus. They were plotting on making sure he never left prison a free man. Paul would later plead guilty and get another 37 months in federal prison. Before long, he would find himself in Yazoo City Federal Prison, one of the worst federal prisons in the United States, because of the staff. There, he would serve that sentence dreaming of his freedom and all the things he would do when he finally walked out of the federal prison sentence. But the feds knew that Bogus was a dangerous man, and that his chances of walking out of federal prison ever again were bleak. The new indictment that was sure to come would outline it all. A reign of unspeakable terror was unleashed in this territory by Bogus and his enterprise. Murders, robberies, assaults, gun violence, kidnappings, all ordered by Girard while he was incarcerated in that federal prison system with contraband cell phones, according to the prosecutor Delia Smith. His reign of terror began in 2002 when he was just 16 years old. Police would throw Bogus in handcuffs and try him as an adult for first-degree robbery and illegal gun possession. And he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in prison for those charges. But nothing would stop him. In his mind, even at 16, he was the king of the island. In 2011, he began running his own gang, and people did as Bogus said, where they faced dire consequences. But there was someone else who wanted to be the king of the island, Ivan James. He ran his own drug crew and found himself in time snatched up by the feds. Bogus was in an all-out war with Ivan, who started a drug ring on St. Croix around 2013. Violence would play a significant role in both men's lives, but Ivan's main business was trafficking. From criminals to cops to airport workers, he employed them all to meet his goals. Ivan James, along with his brother, Kay and Taj James, their mother Iris James and associates, Adrian Augustine and Malachi Benjamin, lived on the James family compound in the LaGrange area near Frederick, St. Croix. Mr. James controlled the drug trade on the west side of St. Croix, in addition to his marijuana operations with Mr. Williams. He also organized and facilitated cocaine trafficking from the Virgin Islands to the United States mainland. Mr. James used associates to purchase kilos of cocaine and smuggle them to the United States. Correctional Officer Ford assisted Mr. James in these efforts. Robert Brown, Bogus's second-in-command, would later become a government witness, snitching despite his propensity for violence, and he would testify that he witnessed Officer Ford purchase cocaine on Mr. James' behalf from Keith Lewis at Mr. Lewis's residence. Officer Ford purchased at least 24 bricks of cocaine from Mr. James at various times. Shipping bricks to the U.S. was difficult, but not impossible for Ivan. He felt he was smarter than everyone else. St. Croix airport employee, Talissa Caesar, would smuggle bricks for Mr. James many times. Miss Caesar used her knowledge of airport systems and procedures to avoid detection and successfully transport the bricks. She smuggled at least 2 kilos of that special powder on each trip. Miss Caesar acted as a carrier for approximately 100 bricks of cocaine. She was all the way in. Miss Caesar also recruited her then boyfriend, Luis Ortiz, to Mr. James' organization. Mr. Ortiz worked in airport maintenance and smuggling multiple kilos of coke by secreting them through security screening in his maintenance back brace was not a hard task. Once aboard the target aircraft, he removed the life preservers from under seat pockets to stash the cocaine inside. Ortiz and Caesar initially received the cocaine at James's residence. James was present during the exchanges. Ortiz and Caesar would be paid between $2,500 to $3,000 per brick that they smuggled. Bogus felt he should be the only man moving work in and out of the island, and if he had to kill to make it happen, then so be it. And Ivan James felt the same way, and the war would take off from there. It would also bring in Alexis Rivera, a sex money murder gang member, into the fold. Ivan was not just a businessman, but a man that wanted that work, and he invited him. Ivan wanted at Bogus and his crew. Word had come in that Brown, Bogus's right hand, had 5 bricks, and Ivan told his people, go get that. Ivan's people would catch Brown slipping and put that thing to him. After a few moments of being pistol whipped, he would give it up. But that would not end nicely for the robbers. When he got up, Brown would retaliate and would not be so nice as the robbers were to him. He would personally take Jermaine Bird Williams out of this world. But Ivan, not wanting to be weak, would strike back at his ops. He ordered his underlings to kill Mr. Brown. The associates of Mr. James ambushed Brown and an uninvolved friend as he sat in the backseat of a car in a St. Croix apartment complex parking lot. Mr. Brown and his friends suffered multiple gunshot wounds, but miraculously would survive the barrage of bullets. St. Croix had now become a war zone. The drug trade in prison also was flourishing for not only Bogus, but Ivan as well. One of his people on the inside of Golden Grove Prison was John Williams. John managed a marijuana and cocaine drug trafficking operation from within the prison facility. Ivan James supplied some portion of the weed distributed by Williams. Correctional Officer Vivian Ford supported Measures, Williams and James' drug distribution in the facility. Officer Ford used his access to smuggle in drugs or deliver payments. Williams recruited other inmates such as Alexis Rivera to his sex money murder gang to assist in retrieving packages of weed and coke dropped off along the facility's perimeter. Witnesses described sex money murder as a sub-gang of the larger United Blood Nation gang. Williams and his crew controlled the drug trade both in the facility and on the east side of St. Croix. Williams used at least 2 cell phones to coordinate his operations. He would speak in code, thinking he's tricking the cops, to convey orders and give instructions, including food or plates, which meant certain quantities of drugs. But no one was ever off limits. Leaving prison never meant you would live outside of the walls. The Virgin Islands Bureau of Corrections released Williams from confinement on May 24, 2017. On the evening of May 25th, within 24 hours, Alexis Rivera, Nikki Brooks, LeVar Poguson, and a 4th young male congregated around a table near a children's playground at the D. Hamilton Jackson Terrace housing complex, known as Red Brick in Christiansted, St. Croix. Poguson went by the nickname Bugsy and belonged to the NTG sub-gang of the Bloods. The group spent the early evening in Red Brick selling drugs, smoking, and hanging out. Brooks received a call from Williams sometime after 8:45 p.m. Williams told Brooks, "Man, go ahead and get out of here. You got to move." Brooks departed for his baby mom's house. Rivera believes something is about to happen. He would take cover behind a tree on the far side of the park near a basketball court. His heart pounded. Him focusing, he wanted to see what was about to happen. Bugsy departed for his grandmother's house, but returned to retrieve a forgotten item from the park table. Rivera would go from gang member to later testifying witness about that fateful night on May 25, 2017, where the island would erupt with more loss of life. Rivera would testify that Ivan James, John Williams, and an individual known as Fire then approached the playground from the side closet to the Red Brick housing complex near the house where the Candy Lady lived. They wore black long-sleeve shirts and pants. They tried to hide in the night. They wore ski masks, but the masks were pulled up around the tops of their heads and not covering their faces. Mr. Ivan James carried a rifle. Williams with a rifle and a handgun. Rivera saw James shoot Bugsy. Rivera then ducked behind the tree and heard additional gunshots. Now he was seeing what he thought he wanted to see, but in fear he wanted to run but could not move. After a few seconds, Rivera looked again and saw Williams stand over Bugsy, where he would fire multiple shots into Bugsy from an assault rifle. Rivera heard over 50 shots fired, and he said that he would hear Bugsy scream from the first one, and then he would scream no more. Williams and James then ran to the back of Red Brick and left in a loud truck. LeVar Poguson would lay there, taking his last breath, face up, thinking of the last time he'd seen his mother's face, and regretting the life choices that he had made. Investigator Ivana Schuster arrived on the scene at 10:24 p.m. She took photographs, cataloged evidence of a young life lost to the streets. He lay there wearing a white t-shirt and red shorts. The colors indicated his membership in the Bloods. His pockets contained petty hustle, dime bags of marijuana, a loaded handgun magazine, and an empty handgun holster. Multiple bullet ricochet marks from bullets striking the sidewalk and deflecting away surrounded his body. It was all over with now for LeVar, his life forever gone. Nothing but a memory to some that will soon fade away. Shell casings recovered from the red brick murder scene matched the calibers of 3 firearms recovered weeks later from James' residence: a .7.62 caliber AK-47 rifle, an AR-15 rifle, a .40 caliber Glock 22 pistol. Investigators conducted a forensic tool mark analysis of the shell casings and compared them to test fires from the recovered firearms. Investigators concluded that the AR-15 rifle later found at Mr. James' residence fired shells recovered from the Bogus homicide. Investigators also concluded the Glock 22 pistol fired shell casings from the Pogson homicide. When the feds come out, they come, and there's usually no way out. Paul Bogus Girard and his right-hand man and others were arrested and charged with the viciousness that they unleashed on the island. Bogus ordered shootings against rival gang members as well as individuals he believed had stolen from or otherwise disrespected the gang. Bogus Girard planned, and his crew would execute several armed robberies, including of the Divi Carina Bay Casino in St. Croix. Even the casino wasn't off limits. Gems and Gold Corner Jewelry Store, Signatures Jewelry, and 3G's Jewelry and Repair located in St. Thomas. Bogus wanted that bread, and he would send his people to get it. With a cell phone in federal prison, he could call on his most faithful to do the dirty work that came with the street life. One of his most trusted hitmen was Tyler Luck Eugene. Bogus would order that Juan Encarnacion be killed. The man for the job was none other than Luck. At about 7:30 p.m., Luck would confront Juan, and before he could respond, he would unleash his pistol outside the H&R grocery store on Queen Street in Fredericksted. At 7:39 p.m., police would find him laying on the concrete, unconscious. Another one of Bogus's shooters would always answer the call when Bogus needed him to unleash extreme violence. Eugene's role in the gang was revealed in a call with his boss, Girard. In a February 28, 2016 call among Girard, Brown, and Eugene, Brown and Eugene informed Girard that they had spotted several rival gang members and discussed how to shoot them as if they were planning a plot for a movie. Eugene complained that he could not shoot them while he was in his partner's mother's car. The cell phones had been tapped, and the feds were listening in. But they didn't know. In another call that day, Bogus Girard ordered Eugene to kill Tanisha Williams in St. Thomas. Later in another call, Bogus was irate, and he would call 2 more loyal soldiers, Prentice and Simon, and he would discuss how Simon would make flight arrangements for Eugene to travel to St. Thomas to finish off Williams. These calls demonstrated that Eugene was a soldier who carried out Bogus Girard's orders and reported to him. Rival gang members became food and were always on the platter. Denium Haywood was a rival gang member in the Walter I. M. Hodge housing community on December 9, 2015. And on this day, he was being hunted, but he never knew. Brown, Bogus's right-hand man that would later outline the case for the feds and help send Bogus to prison until the sun burns out, was on the phone with Eugene as Eugene drove into the housing community. He saw Haywood, and he started to shoot until his gun jammed. Brown would also testify that on February 2, 2016, he and Eugene rented a car to find and kill Haywood in Frederick, St. Croix. When they found Haywood, he was standing with 2 other people, including Juan Encarnacion. Eugene urged Brown to kill all 3 men. He told him, "Pop them all, homie." Although Brown aimed at Haywood, he ultimately shot and killed Encarnacion. After the shooting, Brown, Eugene, and another accomplice would drive to another neighborhood to search for more members of the rival crew. And then again, on March 12, 2015, Brown and Eugene teamed up to shoot rival gang members at Bogus's direction. He was the real shot caller, calling shots from prison. Their plan was thwarted when their rental car got a flat tire. They abandoned the car and ran through the bushes to avoid gunfire from rival gang members, and the police were on their tail. Brown related how they escaped and Eugene had dropped his gun. In text messages, Eugene and Brown discussed how the police recovered the gun Eugene had dropped. The police wanted Bogus's crew off the streets, and they were keying in on the main players. The killing on the island had to stop. But when? Harry 36, also known as Crumball, would participate in the murder of Eddie Harriet Jr., who was believed to have stolen money from the gang. If you stole from the homies, your ass was out. Bogus played no games. Harry also set up the murder of Jermaine Williams, a member of the gang led by Ivan James, who was shot to death as his wife and daughter watched only steps away at a daycare center. The gang was brutal and nothing would stand in their way except for the feds eventually. They didn't care that this gang had to execute someone in front of, child, place. Harry was the gang's armorer, storing the gang's firearms and supplying them to gang members to use in crimes ordered by Bogus. When the plan was executed to rid Jermaine Williams of his life, Harry would report to Girard in real time on his cell phone as things were carried out. Harry told Bogus Girard where Williams would be ambushed and what kind of car he would be driving. He reported the target's movements to Girard, who became excited just with the thought of violence. He listened in as they began to execute their plan. Footage from the school where Williams was shot shows Harry going into the school while on the phone, leaving and driving away. And then returning a short time later, after the murder, Harry warned Girard that police were looking for the rental car used by the shooters. No one was safe here on the island. Anyone could become a victim. To these crews, life had little value. Regular citizens with a business and valuables could get out as well. Visiting a jewelry store to make a purchase could get you tied up, literally. On August 19, 2015, Emmanuel and Terrell Thomas would enter the Signature Jewelry Store in St. Thomas, tie up two customers, and direct the bank employee, a co-conspirator, to fill a bag with jewelry. Emmanuel had Bogus on the phone during the robbery. Bogus later directed Emmanuel to add money from the robbery to his commissary account at the prison. Emmanuel related that Girard orchestrated the robbery of 3G's jewelry and repair. On the morning of the robbery, Bogus called 3G's to confirm the store was open. Emmanuel and an associate would enter the store, armed, tie up more employees, and demand money from a female employee. During the robbery, Emmanuel had Girard on the phone again. He would receive $500 for the robbery, which Bogus said was all he could receive for right now. And now the feds had enough and would execute their plan. Paul and many of the crew knew it was coming, or had an inclination that this was about to be the end of their reign. The only question was, when? The crew would be arrested and charged by the feds in September 2018. Bogus, after looking at the indictment, knew that it was all bad, and they would likely never see the streets or his island ever again. Or would he? Despite the fact that Bogus had been charged in the new indictment with being St. Croix's most dangerous man, the feds would release Bogus on accident, leading to speculation that he had escaped. Bogus had been serving his prison sentence for the earlier prison contraband conviction at the Federal Correctional Institution in Yazoo City, Mississippi, one of the worst federal prisons in the country that is filled with corrupt staff members. He was then transferred to St. Thomas via a writ and arrested on October 1st, 2018. The following day, Magistrate Judge Ruth Miller ordered that Bogus be detained without bond pending trial. Despite this detention order on October 18, 2018, Girard's original sentencing date, release date on the contraband sentence, while awaiting trial in NBC Guanabara, Girard was released from federal custody. The feds gave Bogus Girard a plane ticket and a ride to the airport. His plane ticket was for the island. When he boarded the plane, he would look back and laugh at the feds, in a sly way, thanking them for his freedom. 2 days later, agents from the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshal Service interviewed Bogus's friends and family in an attempt to locate him. All initially denied having seen him, but according to the feds, they were all helping Bogus avoid capture. Record from Girard's father's phone showed 45 calls to the Arwak Bay Hotel on October 19th, and surveillance footage obtained from Rawson Airport showed Girard's father picking him up. When confronted with this information, his father admitted he picked up Bogus from the airport and brought him and his girlfriend to the Arwak Hotel and paid for their room. While at the hotel, Paul and his girlfriend had been banging each other and later exchanged Snapchat messages expressing the hope that she was pregnant. Bogus knew that a life sentence was waiting for him, and he wanted ties to the streets and a child to carry on his legacy. "I know your family gonna be happy you make a baby," she wrote on October 22nd. An agent said Paul replied that he was so glad, hope God make that happen. During the brief time, he was not incarcerated. Girard sent Snapchat messages to a relative bragging that he'd been released and sent back to St. Croix despite the pending charges that should have kept him behind bars. "I happy I out, thanks to them, me son. And I have to do, I can't turn in," Bogus would write. "They have to do their job, that's not my fault." It's unclear where Paul hid after leaving the hotel, but Snapchat messages from his girlfriend on October 23rd indicate he was planning to move again. Without telling her where, "Since you want to move up, watch. She wrote, "and I could see you opening and closing my messages." On November 1st, Virgin Islands Bureau of Correctional Officers seized a cell phone from an inmate, Manuel Davis, a known associate of Bogus. They obtained a warrant to search the phone and found at least 2 cell phone numbers being used by Paul Girard to communicate with Davis. On the day the phone was seized, Bogus had asked Davis to arrange the purchase of machine guns and urged caution. "You forget I had get shot up jewelry store? Eat? LOL," Davis would write. The FBI agent who wrote the affidavit said investigators believe this was a reference to an attempted robbery of Cleopatra gift shop that Girard had organized on November 22, 2014, during which time Davis was shot by the Virgin Island police. Bogus replied that he respects Davis for doing time without mentioning Girard's involvement to law enforcement. He would tell Davis that you was a real soldier. Bogus also told Davis he was ready to get vengeance on those who betrayed their gang while he was behind bars, pledging, "No mercy, fam." Even though he had serious charges pending, in his warped mind, Bogus Girard was working towards retaking power on St. Croix from rival gangs through shootings and murders, and told Davis, "We're going to take over, trust me." On November 4th, investigators used one of the numbers from Davis's phone to track Girard to a storm-damaged home in Claremont on the north shore of St. Croix, where he was found hiding in a room that had DVR hooked up to a home video surveillance. 5 cell phones and boxes for other cell phones not found in the home. Bogus would feel the cold metal from the handcuffs bite his wrist. As he said, "I do nothing, Mom. I do nothing, rude boy." The agents responded without a word and only a smirk. Before long, the trial would commence, and Bogus would see his friends and others that he felt an alliance to get on the stand one after another, including his right man, Robert Brown, striking Girard in every way. His second command would betray him and outline the case for the federal government. When the feds started talking about the death penalty and life in prison, Brown forgot his allegiance to Bogus and the street code and decided he had to hustle his way out of a life sentence. He would say the first order of business in life is self-preservation. The feds had it all: wiretaps, recorded calls, and now the testimony of Bogus's people that were closely tied to him. For 3 weeks, the jury would hear the facts that sounded like they came out of a fictional movie. But the violence and mayhem was not fictional. This was real life shit. There was no way Bogus was getting out of this one. His fate sealed. By his own captured words on recorded prison phone calls, intercepted calls from smuggled cell phones in prison, and retrieved text messages, Paul Bogus revealed himself as the leader and mastermind of a gang engaged in robberies, drug trafficking, kidnapping, and murders. The communications disclosed how he planned, directed, and ordered the crimes. In some calls, he listened and gave orders as crimes were being committed. They also demonstrated the roles of co-defendants Harry and Eugene played in the gang and how they participated in various charged crimes. Bogus had already confirmed his fate before he was ever arrested. The evidence was overwhelming, and the key to everything was Bogus's second-in-command. Robert Brown described how the gang operated and was controlled by Paul Bogus. He provided details of the crimes in which he, Harry, and Eugene participated as members of the gang. He testified that he followed Bogus's orders. He took out hits on people, including the attempted murders of Mario Daniels and Kareem Mathis on November 26, 2015, and the murders of Jerome Williams and Juan Encarnacion. After 3 long weeks, the trial would conclude, and the jury would come back unanimously, finding Bogus and his Confederates guilty as charged. The Paul Girard criminal enterprise that had been riddled with violence had, according to the feds, finally came to an end on June 4, 2024. In a lonely federal courtroom, Paul would hang his head low as Judge Morrison would call off the charges, handing the forever prison sentences out. Life is life in the feds, and it means you have no life. That you will be surrounded by concrete and steel and razor wire for the rest of your natural life.